Dave Smith is always watching and has spies everywhere. So if you're involved in unmanly behavior, a man card violation will be issued. And in extreme cases, a man card revocation.
Because every time you drop the ball, man-wise, I'm going to take one from you.
It's time for man card violations.
Dave Smith back with you for another edition of Dave Smith Unleashed, reveling in the fact that we are 3-0 on my NFL locks right now. So if you're a subscriber to the Dave Smith Unleashed podcast, we are making a lot of money here. Rams in week 1, Rams in week 2, and then last Sunday, how about the Seahawks -7 over the New Orleans Saints? And that baby was locked up about midway through the first quarter as Seattle was up 28-0. So that's Lock City. And let's not forget, how about my boxing lock of Bud Crawford, an absolute lock at plus 150 against Canelo Alvarez? I told you on here, I told you on Twitter, I said that baby is a lock. Canelo always has trouble with guys who move and box on him. That Crawford. So we got Crawford and my 3 NFL locks. How about that? 3-0 NFL locks against the spread so far this NFL season, and my Bud Crawford lock. We are on a roll. Thanks again, of course, to MTS Transportations, our great sponsor, for making the Dave Smith Unleashed show possible. And for all your shipping and trucking and freight needs, there's only one place to go. It's MTS Transportations. I'm about ready to give myself a man card violation. And before that, thanks to all the subscribers here. We're growing every day, growing every month, getting lots of subscribers, getting lots of comments and likes and comments on our YouTube page. So make sure you go to that. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe and comment on Dave Smith Unleashed. Okay. Well, I'm the one who invented the man card violation. I know a lot of people have stolen the idea, and I see it on television shows and movies now. Everybody's giving themselves a man card violation, but I am the originator. I'm the one who invented the term, so I should be free to say it whenever I want. And I'm about ready to give myself one right now. I'm going to report myself for a man card violation. I would like to know if all of you agree with me on this. So make sure you hit that comment section on the YouTube page, or go to X at Dave Sports God. Go to the comment section and let me know what you think about giving myself a man card violation. Okay. Now, I've always considered myself straight, of course, as straight can be. Love women. Love women my whole life. Never been attracted to another man, at least not that I knew, at least not that I know of. Now, I had some issues with Jim Harbaugh. I said to myself on the air, I said on the air one time around 10 years ago, I might for the first time in my life be attracted to another man because Jim Harbaugh, he took over as the coach of my San Francisco 49ers, took them from 6-10 to the NFC Championship game his first year, to the Super Bowl his second year, to the NFC Championship game his third year. And in my opinion, he's one of the greatest coaches of all time. No question. And he will have the San Diego, now Los Angeles Chargers in the Super Bowl. When he got the job, I said he'd do it in 5 years. And then the great Steve Kim corrected me. And he said, 5, try 2, try 3. And with the Chargers being undefeated now, who knows? Maybe this could be the year. But he will have them in the Super Bowl. But this, I tell you what, I had a huge man crush on Dan Campbell of the Detroit Lions the second he got that job. Now, I'd never heard of him. I didn't know who he was before that. And I saw him up at his initial press conference and I said, well, look at this guy, a big, strong guy, a tough guy with a strong jaw. And I said, I like the cut of this guy. I like this guy. And then he gets up there and he says, you know what? The losing's over, because as we all know, the Detroit Lions are the dregs of the National Football League. They have been bad about as long as I've been alive, and that's a long time. When I was a little kid, they were horrible. When I was an adult, they were horrible. The last 10 or 15 years, they've been awful. They had a good little run when Barry Sanders was there. I think they made the NFC Championship game one year, but for the most part, I think they're one of only 2 teams that has never been to the Super Bowl, I think they're the only original NFL team that has never been to a Super Bowl. So that is embarrassing indeed. So he steps up there to the podium, Dan Campbell, and he says, ladies and gentlemen, the losing is over. You got a new sheriff in town here. I do not accept losing. I do not accept players who want to lose. And I will take somebody who'll run through a wall for me and somebody who will play hard for 60 minutes over a multi-talented, lazy guy every time. You can have all the talent in the world. Now, that's fine. It's great to have talent. It's great to run fast. It's great to jump high. But if you don't have that character and you don't have that heart, I don't want you. I'm going to take lesser talented guys, and I'm going to get guys who play hard for 60 minutes every game, and guys who want to run through a wall for me. The losing is over. And I said, you know what? I was like sitting in church listening to a minister and said, I believe, brother. I believe, Dan Campbell. I think I'm going to become a Lions fan. And then he says, what we're going to do as soon as I take over here, we're going to bite people's kneecaps off. And I said, wow. That's straight out of the Vince Lombardi coaching book. We're going to bite kneecaps off. I said, okay, good. I like it. And then he said he was going to bring a real lion to the training facility and walk it around on a leash during practice. And a reporter asked him, well, what's that for? And he said, for motivational reasons. If a guy isn't going 100% in practice, who knows? I might let that leash go. He might get away from me for a second. And that's a great motivational tactic when you see a lion coming at you to get yourself to play hard. So I said, I love this guy right away. I said, you know what? Maybe for the second time in my life, I'm feeling a little attraction toward a man. Something I never thought I would say in my life. So I guess that's a man card violation, is it? For Jim Harbaugh, number one. But even worse, I got a real worst case of a man crush now with Dan Campbell, number two. So his first year, I think they went 1-15 his first year. There were tremendous improvement in year two. And in year three, the Detroit Lions got to the NFC Championship game against my San Francisco 49ers, and they had a 24-7 lead at halftime. It looked for sure like he was going to the Super Bowl that year. And then they fell apart in the second half. It was a heartbreaker. They wind up losing. The 49ers go to the Super Bowl and then lose to the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes and company. Then last year, the Lions had the best record in the NFL. They had a home field advantage throughout the playoffs. I said, well, this is going to be the year, right? And then everybody gets injured. They had like 9 defensive players out injured at the end of the year. They wind up losing to Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders in the NFC semifinal game. So it wasn't, and I'm beginning to think maybe they're a little snake bit. Maybe the curtain is closed. Maybe the window of opportunity is closed. When you have a 24-7 lead at halftime of the NFC Championship game, and then last year you have home field advantage all the way through and you can't get it done either. Well, maybe not after what I saw on Monday Night Football. Maybe not after what I saw what the Detroit Lions did to the Baltimore Ravens, whom a lot of people, me included, my Super Bowl pick this year are the Baltimore Ravens against the Rams. Those are my 2 picks. Now, of course, they still could both get there. It's early in the season. They've only played 3 games, but that was an impressive performance by the Lions last week. You know, speaking of the Lions, their superstar wide receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown, you know, I know his father. His father, John Brown, I used to work out with at Gold's Gym in Venice back in the day, back in the 80s and 90s. His father was a professional bodybuilder. He used to compete against all the greats, Lee Haney and Rich Gaspari and company and Mike Christian. He was a professional bodybuilder that used to train at the Gold's Gym in Venice. And his name was John Brown. Now, all of a sudden, I lost track of him for years and years. Then I see a feature. He's got 3 sons, and he's kind of the LeVar Ball of football. He put his 3 sons, you know, through the training regimens from the time they were little boys, and he had a goal of getting all of them to the NFL like LeVar did with his 3 boys, getting them to the NBA. And by the way, I was LeVar Ball's high school basketball coach, in case you didn't know, Canoga Park High School out in the San Fernando Valley. So I got a connection to LeVar Ball and to John Brown. So I lose track of John all these years later, and all of a sudden he's put a Saint on his name. I said, where the hell did that Saint come from? Now all of a sudden he's John St. Brown, and his son is Amon-Ra St. John. And John was interviewed. He said, well, I just thought that sounded a lot classier. St. Brown sounds a lot classier than Brown. And his 3 sons, Amon-Ra, Equanimous, who plays for the 49ers, and Osiris, the youngest son, who was a 4-star college recruit. So how about Amon-Ra, Equanimous, and Osiris, his 3 boys? And Amon-Ra is a superstar with the Lions. He's going to be a Hall of Famer one day. Absolute superstar talent. But getting back to Dan Campbell here, my man crush. And if you want to give me a man card violation, go ahead. You can find me on X at Dave Sports God, or go to the YouTube page here on Dave Smith Unleashed and hit the comment section. So make sure you subscribe and you like and you comment whether I deserve a man card violation or not for having. Well, I thought my first man crush on Jim Harbaugh would be my last one, but I've got an even worse case now with Dan Campbell. So week 1, Lions take the field against the Green Bay Packers at Green Bay, and they get spanked 27-13, and the game wasn't even really that close. Remember, the Packers just dominated the action that night. And remember what everybody was saying? Oh, look at this. Dan Campbell isn't so great after all. Look what happened when he lost his offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, who is now the head coach of the Chicago Bears. And he lost his defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn, who's now the head coach of the New York Jets. So he lost his two coordinators. Now look what happens when he's got to do it on his own. Maybe he's not such a great coach. Well, look what happened in week 2. They beat the Chicago Bears 52-21 as the offense looked great, throwing it all over the field. And then how about so impressive on Monday Night Football? They go to Baltimore. They beat the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson 38-30. That was a great game going back and forth, and Lions won it on a late fumble. But boy, Jared Goff. How great a story is Jared Goff? He was the quarterback of the Rams when they went to the Super Bowl. And then he loses his job. They trade him for Matthew Stafford. And I remember at the time saying on the air, doing a national show, well, that's it for Jared Goff. He'll be out of the league in a couple of years and going to Detroit. And he's got some supermodel girlfriend who's a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model. And I said, well, he can say goodbye to her. See, he's never going to move to Detroit. Are you kidding? She's going to say, bye-bye, baby. I'm an L.A. girl. Well, she went to Detroit with him. She stayed with him. I think they're married now. And he's developed into a top 5 NFL quarterback. He's been great with the Lions. He's completely revived and turned his career around. He's been spectacular with the Lions. He was great against the Bears in week 2. And how about on the road against the Ravens team? A lot of people think are going to the Super Bowl 38-30. It's a fantastic performance by the Detroit Lions. Now the new coordinators. John Morton replaced Ben Johnson. And Ben Johnson is a guy I love. I think he's going to do a great job with the Bears. And boy, last week, how good did Caleb Williams and the Bears look? I know it was the Cowboys, but Caleb looked great with over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. I said when he was drafted first, I said when he struggled last year with the Bears, the problem is the coaching with the Bears. If he gets a good coach, he'll be fine. Look, it's week 3 now. It looks like he's starting to get it. Looks like Ben Johnson's doing a good job. Though I think Caleb's going to be a star in the NFL. But Ben Johnson leaves and he takes the head coaching position with the Chicago Bears. And he's replaced by John Morton, somebody I'd never heard of. I said, who the hell is John Morton? Well, it turns out he used to be a coach of the Lions a couple of years ago. Then the last 2 years he was with the Broncos as the passing game coordinator. And, look how we developed the Bo Nix last year. Bo Nix turned into a star his rookie year with the Broncos. Okay, he did a good job with him. Then Campbell brings him back and hires him as the offensive coordinator with the Lions. And look at the results. 52 points in week 2 against the Bears, 38 against the Ravens on Monday Night Football. Okay, now you lost Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator who went to the Jets. Replaced him with who? Kelvin Shepard, who was the linebackers coach with the Detroit Lions. Boy, do I love him. Do you see him on the sidelines? What a character. Jumping up and down and giving the hand signals and the long hair. And I love this guy too, Kelvin Shepard. And it looks like, what I thought overall. Yes, Ben Johnson's a genius offensive coordinator. Yes, Aaron Glenn's a pretty good defensive coordinator. So far, it looks like John Morton is a good offensive coordinator so far what the Lions have done this year. And yeah, so far, Kelvin Shepard running the defense, they don't seem to have skipped a beat under Aaron Glenn. He's doing a good job as well. But the key is Dan Campbell is the guy. He's the head coach. He's the one calling the shots. He is the guy. You can lose coordinators. As long as he's the head coach, I think they're going to be okay. And I tell you what I love about him as well. Campbell got ripped. Remember that NFC Championship game against the 49ers? They went for it twice on 4th downs in the second half. They didn't get it either time, and the 49ers went down and scored both times. They wound up winning and going to the Super Bowl. And Dan Campbell got, I thought, unfairly ripped for that. Unfairly ripped. That's what he does. And pardon the French here, Dan Campbell is no pussy. That's what he does. He goes for it on 4th downs. He plays to win, which is why I love him as a head coach. And when you look at my favorite all-time coaches, Bill Walsh, of course, with the 49ers, winning all those Super Bowls with my favorite team, the 49ers, with Joe Montana. And I tell you what, there's a high school coach I love named Kevin Kelly. I think you've heard him on my show a lot over the years. He's a high school coach from Arkansas. He never punts, which is right out of the Dave Smith playbook, ever. If he's 4th and 20 on his own 5-yard line, he doesn't punt. He never punts, and he tries an onside kick after every score, every touchdown, every field goal. Never kicks deep. If he scores, he's going to do an onside kick, and he's never going to punt, which I love about him. And Bill Walsh was my favorite, and then, of course, Harbaugh, and now Dan Campbell. But, again, he took a lot of criticism in that NFC Championship game against the 49ers. And I thought unfairly so. See, that's what he does. You're going to have to live with that. He's going to go for it on 4th down. He's going to play to win. He's not going to be conservative. He's not going to pussy out and punt or settle for field goals. He's going to play to win and go for it on fourth down. You know what? Sometimes it's going to bite you in the ass. Sometimes it's not going to work. But in his defense there, on both of those fourth down tries against the 49ers, the receivers dropped the football. The ball hit him right in the hands. It should have been conversions, and they should have gone to the Super Bowl. He called the right play. He had players in the right position. Two guys dropped passes. Now, how's that Campbell's fault? Well, he shouldn't have gone for it on fourth. Well, that's what he does. Get used to it. That's what he's always going to do. And it was two drop passes. And how many times against Baltimore Monday night? He's midfield, on his own 35, on his own 30. They got a whole package of plays. They go for it on fourth down all the time. You see, that gives them an advantage as well. And that's not John Morton, and that's not Ben Johnson. That's the head coach making those decisions. So if they've got like a 3rd and 7 or a 3rd and 8, they'll throw a 4 or 5 yard pass because he knows he's not going to punt. He knows he's got 2 downs. So 3rd down sets up the 4th down. Then you've got 4th and short, which is what I love. He doesn't think, well, it's 3rd and long. If we throw incomplete, we'll send in the punter. No. If nobody's open downfield, we'll check down. We'll settle for a 3 or 4 yard game. Then we go to 4th and short. Then we're going to convert, which is fantastic. More coaches should do that, by the way. When you look at the stats, when you look at the analytics, coaches who go for it on 4th down are successful more than they're not successful, and they win more than they lose. So God bless Dan Campbell, my favorite. And yes, I have a man crush. Now, I don't know how attracted I am to him as another man. I don't know. People worried about me with Jim Harbaugh. And now people are worrying about me with Dan Campbell. These man crushes as I get older are more and more frequent. But yes, Dan Campbell is my favorite coach in the NFL. I love the way he coaches. I love the way he goes for it. I love the way he plays to win. I love the way his players run through a wall for him. And will he get to a Super Bowl? I think eventually, yes. He's a great coach. Eventually, he's going to break he should have gone there against my 49ers 2 years ago. And last year, I think everybody in that defense, I think if they had their defense healthy last year, they would have beaten the Commanders and they would have gone on to the NFC Championship game and maybe beaten the Eagles and gone on to the Super Bowl. Who knows? I think they would have gone to the Super Bowl last year if they had a healthy team. But how impressive is Dan Campbell going for it on 4th down? Aggressive, playing to win. That's what we want in our head coach, right? A guy who says we're going to bite their kneecaps off. A guy who walks around the practice field with a real lion and says, hey, you know what? If you guys aren't practicing hard enough, I might just drop the leash and turn my back and walk in and get a cup of coffee. You guys deal with him. And by the way, you talk about a maniac. You ever read what Dan Campbell has every morning of his life? There's a drink. If you go to Starbucks, it's not on the menu. When I was working at 5 o'clock in the morning doing morning drive back in the day, I would go to the Starbucks across the street. I worked inside Angel Stadium. Across the street from Angel Stadium, there was a Starbucks. And they told me, I said, what do you have that's really strong? And the barista said, well, it's not on the menu here. It's called a black eye. Blackeye. And I said, oh, what's that? They said, well, we don't put it on the menu because it might kill you. But it's 4 shots of espresso. I said, wow, give me one of those. And I drank, man, I was flying. My heart was racing. I could get through a morning show. I said, wow, 4 shots of it. Dan Campbell has 3 black eyes every morning of his life, 12 shots of espresso before he starts work. And I said, how is this man's heart? How is his heart not stopped? This is another reason I love Dan Campbell. 12 shots of espresso every morning. Brings a lion to the practice field, bites the kneecaps off people, goes for it on 4th down. He's got a guy named Dave Smith who's got a man crush on him, which I thought would never happen, and getting a man card violation. Damn it, I'm a 49ers fan, but I want to see these Lions go to the Super Bowl because I love Dan Campbell. Well, that's all for Dave Smith Unleashed. This edition of Dave Smith Unleashed. Thanks to all the subscribers. Thanks to everybody for listening. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Go to the YouTube page and make a comment. Go to my Twitter handle, my X handle, @DaveSportsGod, and make sure you subscribe. And, of course, many thanks, as always, to our great sponsor, MTS Transportations, for all your shipping, freight, and trucking needs. And if you want to know when Dave Smith Unleashed is going to be on again, follow me on X, @DaveSportsGod. I'm always posting when the next show is going to be and who the guest is going to be. And we'll talk to you next time. I love Dan Campbell, right here on Dave Smith Unleashed.
You've lost your man card.